Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. So today, we're continuing to talk about my experiences over the time of Age of Sigmar 2nd edition, and today I want to talk about my experience at tournaments and events. So, for those who don't know, I do go to as many events as I possibly can. I generally try and go to all the local events that happen, and I've gone across to a few interstate. My time during Age of Sigmar 2.0 was when I was really starting to get into events. However, I've had both my children over that time, and of course we've also had the current world situations put an end to the stopper at that. So I've been interrupted in my events that I've taken part in over the course of the 2nd edition. Hopefully with 3rd, my kids getting older, the world maybe getting back to normal, I can take more part in more events, which would be great. But let's get talking about my experiences, what I've run, how I've gone, and what I found at events over the course of the years. So I did mention that I guess 2nd edition was when I really started getting into the tournament scene. Is when I started really getting into the wider scene of AOS in general. So I thought before we talk a little bit about that, I'd talk about my experiences prior to this, which really got me into the mood for tournaments for the 2nd edition season of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So my pre-experience, I had 3 tournaments before 2nd edition happened. The first of those was my local games workshop that I used to frequent with a lot of my friends, was the GW Adelaide tournament 2018, 1,000 points. I took Wanderers to it, and I actually won this event with a 3-0 record, beating a good mate, Mr. Alexander Cron, on the top tables, both when we were very starting to get out in this. So that was a load of fun. That really sort of got me in the mindset of how to play. Like, my last game against Cron in this was very different to a lot of the games I'd played in the tournament, the first 2. I sort of got the itch of, like, I like playing in this sort of manner as well. For those who know me, like, I do love my narrative gaming and all that, but I think there's a different itch that tournament gaming can scratch, which narrative and open play and all that sort of stuff just don't, and this is a different thing, and I think variety is the spice of life in general, so I like being able to play in this way on top of playing in a more relaxed manner as well. So that's really what got me thinking of that. I then went to the first proper open community event in GoboCon 2018, where I met loads of people from Realms Gaming and people like Doom and Darkness and all that there. This was a 1,200 point event. I took my Stormcast Eternals and went 3-1. I took a Star Drake back in those days at 1,200 points. It was pretty cool. And then at that point, the group that I was in for Realms Gaming started talking about going over to Bendigo. They'd just all gone to CanCon and they were raving about it and how cool it was. And I ended up going on a road trip with my friend, Mr. Alexander Cron, and boy, was that a road trip and a half. But we went over to Bendigo and we both went there. I ended up taking Stormcast Eternals again. That's the army I've got pictured here. It was a Hammer Strike force, the 2 units of Paladins and stuff like that, with a Celestin Prime in there. And it went 1-4. It did about as well as you would expect Stormcast Eternals to do when you're running Hammer Strike Force. But it was a load of fun. I made some really good friends over in Bendigo, and I had a ton of fun at the event that really got me wanting to do it more. And of course, this was actually the weekend as well where we found out we were getting Age of Sigmar 2.0. So this was effectively the last event before 2.0 hit, which was really cool. And then so 2.0 came out. So then we got our first event happening in my local community in South Australia after this for the new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Endless spells had just been announced and just made, so I wanted to run an army that used some endless spells, and I took Eldritch Council. For those who don't remember what Eldritch Council was, it's what all the Swordmasters and all the mages from the High Elf went into at the beginning of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I had a ton of these models. Unfortunately, I've sold off this army now that Lumineth are a thing. I really didn't have the want for it anymore. And that got sold off to a good home for someone who plays Warhammer Fantasy, and I'm glad it's getting some use there. But I took them, and I took 250 points worth of endless spells and just had an absolute blast playing in this game. I mean, Eldritch Council were what they were. I lost my first game to Sylvaneth. Close, although my Swordmasters did butcher Alariel, which was really fun. I then lost my second game to Legion of Nagash, though the Purple Sun did do 12 mortal wounds to Nagash, which was pretty awesome. And then I won my last game against Tzeentch when I out-magicked a Tzeentch army, just because I had weight of cast, and Eldritch Council used to have some pretty cool dispel abilities across their army as well, which was really fun. So this really got me in the mood. I mean, and the reason I picked Eldritch Council as well is I like playing armies that other people weren't playing. And this got me thinking of like, well, what am I going to do? At this point, people were starting to talk about CanCon and like CanCon tickets coming out. And I knew after the previous year on how everyone went to that, the previous year when it was only 100 people, that I wanted to go to the next one. And so I ended up planning an army for next CanCon. And yeah, this is how I came about landing on Scourge Privateers. And so I started to decide to run my Scourge Privateers. A big reason behind this, so at the time, Honest Wargamer Rob was doing his Chaos Dwarves, his army for a year, to see if he could get better results with his Chaos Dwarves by playing the same army over and over again and just getting better with the army. So I decided to take up the challenge and pick an army based on his statistics no one had ever played in a competitive setting before. And that army was Scourge Privateers. There are a few options. I could have gone with my Eldritch Council, I guess, at this point. But I'm glad I did go with my Scourge Privateers. At the time, City of Secrets had just released. I started reading about Arak Zenth. And then, you know, rereading some of the end time stuff about Lockyer Fellheart. And I was sold on Scourge Privateers. I love the idea of Pirate Elves. It's cool. And they've got some really cool models. I love the Scourge Runner Chariots. The Charybdis looks awesome. And the Privateer models are really, really nice. And the Fleet Master is awesome. So, my first event with these, I took them to Southern Impact, which was a 1-day, 3-game, 2,000-point event. I ended up going 2-1. I lost my first game to Mr. Doom and Darkness himself and his Beasts of Chaos. I then won against an Archaon list where the Scourge Runner Chariots killed Archaon in a single turn. And then I won against another Beast of Chaos list, which was the Khorne Doomball list. We then had an All Roads Lead to CanCon event where I went 2-1 once again. I defeated Seraphon in the first round. I then lost to Legion Nagash and then won against Flesh Eater Courts in my last game there. This was cool. This was a little prep event. I was technically TO as well, so this one was, you know, so-so. But then after that, it was on to the big one and CanCon. So CanCon, I ended up going 3-3. I had my first game against Gloomspite Gitz, Mr. AOS Coach, and won that game. I then played Legion Nagash. I lost my first game against Legion Nagash with a Neferata Arcane combo with some Blood Knights. I then beat a Chain Rasp Horde Blob and Skeleton Horde Blob with Arcane, Legion Nagash in my game 3. And then went to lose against a 2x30 Grimghast Reaper Legion Nagash list. Lost to that. And then beat a Deathmarch Legion Nagash list and lost to Fireslayers in my last game. Yep, that's right. That was the year of Legion Nagash when they were the top tier stuff. And Grimghast Reapers were one of the most horrible things to face. I played 4 Legion Nagash armies with 4 Zombie Lord Dragons with Ethereal Amulets and a ton of Grimghast Reapers over the course of the event. Then my last one for the Scourge Privateers for the whole year was SAGT 2019. Unfortunately, I didn't get to finish this event. My wife was just found out she's pregnant. In fact, we found out just after this that she was pregnant. So she was really sick the second day of the tournament, so I couldn't attend. I did, however, beat Daughters of Cain in my first game, lost to some Sylvaneth on a priority roll for turn 5, and then sort of had a half game with a good friend of mine and his Gloomspite Gitz. So, didn't get to finish that one. But this was a load of fun. This was like my big block of tournaments, I think, between this sort of time of the year. This was pretty much between like the birth of my daughter and the birth of my son, so which was a good like 14 months in there where I managed to squeeze in as many tournaments as possible. Throughout this time, I played a ton more games with my Scourge Privateers and actually ended, like, in total playing all my games. I was on quite a well-stacked winning record with my Scourge Privateers, and it was a ton of fun just to play an army for that long and learn the army, like, and got better with the army as I was playing. Like, I was competing with some very top-tier armies despite not having all the tricks and tools that, you know, a Battletome army did at this point, because obviously this was Scourge Privateers pre-Cities of Sigmar. They did have a battalion, which was pretty cool, which gave me some hero phase activations and a way to play around with that. But for me, this was a really cool experience of, like, if you stick with something, you do get better at it, I think. So then, after SAGT in that year, I took a decent little time off, because at that point, we had my young daughter, my wife was getting more heavily pregnant, and of course, over that time, we had my little boy born. And so I came back late in 2019 playing Cities of Sigmar just after the launch, and I was playing a Hallow Heart army at an event. I went 2-1 with this. This was with a Phoenix Guard and Eternal Guard block sort of forming the bulk of my lines, and then just throwing endless spells out as much as I could. Obviously, this was still before the change where you could only have 3. So I was taking 5 or 6 endless spells in a list and just hurling them at enemies. It was a ton of fun. I then took a Cities of Sigmar list to SAGT, and this was more just a paint up models and see what I can do. I sort of built like a army list based around a couple of cavalry units and just taking some cool models that I really liked. For this tournament, I was playing with, like, just painted up an army quickly because in the end, this army was really done at the last minute. I painted up a ton of terrain for that tournament, but I had a ton of fun. I went 1-4 with Cities of Sigmar playing Hammerhall, and that was that for that one, really. This is the list I've got here. You can see with the Dread Spears, the Phoenix Guard, the Handgunners, and the Drakespawn, and the Demigryphs, a Black Dragon, Sorceress, and a couple of Battle Mages and an Anointed. It was a fine and fun list to play. It was a fun list to play, and I think it did have some play. There's some really cool moments. I mean, in my one victory as well, the Dreadlord Black Dragon definitely did a ton of work going into and killing a bunch of stuff. A couple of Soul Grinders to his name. The Demigryphs charged in and killed a Bloodthirster in a turn. There was some cool stuff. And even in the games there was a couple of really close games where I probably could have won. I was playing Ogres in my 4th game where I really should have won, but he somehow got off the Jaws spell where he continuously does mortal wounds and took my dragon from full health to nothing in a single turn and just completely flipped the game. I was in total control, and then the dragon just died, and it was terrible. But it was a great game, great tournament, and great bit of fun. This one for me was really getting back in, seeing people I hadn't seen since CanCon the previous year. It was a load of fun. And so after SAGT in 2020, the world ended and everything sort of, went up in the air, and really I got another whole year missed, which was a bit sad. So there were some serious gaps in my year, one due to my own family things that were happening with my children, and the other one, well, the world ended. So it's a bit sad that I maybe didn't get the amount of tournaments I would have liked over this edition, but I got to play one last tournament for the edition, which was great. That was SAGT 2021, so coming back to an SAGT again. For those who wonder what SAGT is, it's South Australian Grand Tournament. It's my local Grand Tournament. And so I took 2,000 points at Stormcast Eternals and Stormkeep. If you'd like to hear a very detailed look into this sort of army and stuff, I've got videos up on the channel of like really going in depth into my thoughts and ideas and how the tournament went and stuff like that on the channel. I'll leave some links to that in the descriptions and, at the end of the video. But I took the 60 Liberators army from Stormkeep. It went pretty well. It is one of those armies where either wins really big or loses really hard, because your opponent either can't kill it or they can. So one of those two things happens. Ended up going 2-3, which was really cool. Had a ton of fun playing the army. It was great to get so many Stormcast on the table. There's plenty of battle reps on the channel for this army if you'd like to have a look at it. But that really was my tournament experience for the entirety of the edition. Like I said, not as many as I would have liked. There's 2 big glaring things that stopped me getting to tournaments in different parts. One from my own and one from, well, you just can't help the other one. I think my biggest thing is the next edition. I'd like to attend more tournaments. I'm, of course, organising my own grand tournament, which will be the Cinderful GT, and we've got 48 players, I think, signed up so far, which is going to be amazing. And, yeah, I really look forward to more tournament and competitive play in the future. Can't wait to see what the new GH Bree brings. And lastly, I'd like to hear your experience of tournaments. What are some of your tournament experiences or event experiences over the course of the edition? Love to know what you thought about them all and thought about your time during the edition. Leave us some comments and let us know. Well, we hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And also, while you're at it, why don't you come join our Discord server where you can chat to me and other members of our fine little community here at Cinderful Gaming. You can do so by following the link to our Discord server, which is in the description of the video. Lastly, I'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel financially via Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you to our Patreon supporters Christian Weir, James Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lowell, Alder and Shot First, James Crowder, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, Tim Newman and The Rising Ape. And thank you to our YouTube members Green Roots Gaming and Fire Titan. Thank you all for supporting the channel, and if you'd like to help support the channel like these fine people do, you can do so by clicking one of the links down to either our Patreon or our YouTube members in the description of the video as well. Thank you all for watching, everyone, though. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. Ciao for now.